Hello and welcome to Building the Premier Accounting Firm. I'm your host, Roger Knecht, president of Universal Accounting Center. And for nearly 3 decades, I've been working with accounting professionals to help them both start and build successful bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here that we actually focus on those things that you need to consider as you're working on your business, ranging from marketing to get the clients that you deserve, offering quality accounting services, and doing the work efficiently and effectively so as to not only take care of your clients, but to get paid what you're worth. So with this, we're actually interviewing and discussing with the experts each and every week various things that you need to be considering. And today's going to be no exception. We're actually going to have on the show Wes Towers. He is the founder of Uplift 360. It's a digital marketing firm in Melbourne, Australia, where he works with businesses to help them actually focus on clear positioning, smarter websites, and simple AI-assisted content systems. Wes focuses on turning marketing from random acts into deliberate, measurable engines for growth. So Wes, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Roger. Pleasure to be with you today, coming from the other side of the planet. So always good to connect.
Always a pleasure. Well, you get the other hemisphere, so you get to enjoy summer at this point while we're enjoying winter, and we'll flip it around here in a few more months.
Yeah, absolutely. And an early morning for me today as well. So yeah, I love getting up early and getting cracking on the day.
Well, my joy in speaking with people from Australia and other places similar is you get to tell me how tomorrow's going to be.
Yeah, give you some stock tips or something like that. That'd be helpful, wouldn't it? Or
exactly. It never plays out as well as I'd like, but I'll start with it.
Yeah, this is not financial advice, by the way, but maybe, no, we won't go down that path.
You're totally fine. So let's jump into what we're going to be discussing today, which is marketing. One of the things that I find very important is as firms are growing, one of the struggles that many accounting firm owners deal with is marketing and sales traditionally isn't our forte. It's not something that we traditionally just kind of gravitate to. In fact, I often find that it's something that people kind of shun away from. They'd much rather kind of organize the office, maybe get a few things situated before going out, venturing out and working on something to market and get their clients. But yet, even as good as an accountant is, without paying customers, it doesn't matter. So this is going to be a great conversation as it relates to marketing. So let's start, first of all, with what is marketing? Can you define that for my listeners?
Yeah, it's really just taking something to market. So having a clear and concise and compelling message that you want to communicate to the marketplace so that people choose you as the logical choice for their needs. So in accounting, if you're a great match, perceived to be a great match for what they need there and then that's marketing, and that's your job to communicate that.
Perfect. Now, with marketing in mind, one of the things that I think we need to begin with is some of the strengths that we have as accounting firms that we should be leveraging, at least better leveraging than we perhaps are, so that we can actually take to market some of the strengths that we have. And one of the things that I know that you're really good at emphasizing is being the obvious local choice in the marketplace. And that's something that obviously there are various tools out there that we could be leveraging to accomplish this, such as Google and so forth. So let's talk about what it is we can be doing to leverage our local presence.
Yeah, well, it depends a little bit about the size and scale of the location that you're in. So if you're in a large city with lots of accountants, it's ideal if you can niche into something precise and specific so you can stand out above everybody else for that type of accounting, whether it be, your virtual CFO's kind of style of accounting right down to your compliance related bookkeeping and that sort of thing. And there's the whole spectrum. And then there's the types of clients that you serve. So the bigger the city, the smaller you should go in your niching, I believe. But if you're in a small town, you probably need to, and you work with small businesses, maybe you need to niche less. So it's a bit of a balancing act. But realistically, you want to be, when your ideal client comes in contact with whatever marketing message it is, it needs to speak to them directly so they feel as though you're the logical choice. So it's a balancing act depending on the nature of where you're located and who you want to serve.
Well, one of the things I appreciated is how you distinguish between a smaller market and a larger market, because you're right, it does kind of lend itself towards this discussion about niching your services. And I liked how you started to describe it, because admittedly, if it's a small town and I'm the only accountant, I just need to make sure everybody knows I'm here. So that's one thing. But in a larger market, I might be an accountant, bookkeeper, tax preparer in that local market, but there could be somebody down the street around the corner, and I need to distinguish how I am different from them. And that's where you started to go into some of the services that are being offered, maybe the industries we focus on, some of those unique characteristics that define us as being the right choice for that ideal client that we're targeting. So, what are some of those things that, from an accounting perspective, you feel we could do a better job emphasizing to actually help us stand out as being the ideal choice?
Yeah, so the fear sometimes is that if you don't, I do websites for the most part, that we feel as though that's the core piece to your marketing, and everything else hinges on that. So everything draws you back to your website. But sometimes for accounting practices, they just have so many services and offerings, and they feel as though all of them need to be communicated in the website. But realistically, if you go for the very best, you'll get the other work by accident. So sometimes the accountants I've worked with, they'll do more your tax return for the individual, but they don't really love it. They don't really want to do that. So we're stripping that out oftentimes and just saying, well, don't even talk about it through your marketing message. You'll do some of that work by accident, and that's fine. And maybe it's a high net worth individual that you're prepared to do it for. But go for the very best, because the more you add to the site, curiously, the more diluted your message is. So think about speaking to that one type of individual and just make it compelling for that one person. The others will come by accident anyway. It feels as though you're cutting off a lot of opportunities if you do that, but realistically, you're just amplifying your reach into the specifics of what you want.
Wes, I love how you're describing this because I couldn't agree more. One of the things that I think the accountant may be kind of drawn to doing is listing everything that they're capable of performing, all the services you can do, all the things that I can make money from doing. And at the end, all we're doing is diluting our message, exactly as you explained. And those things will come. If you start to do the bookkeeping, it naturally is going to evolve into perhaps doing the accounting, possibly doing the tax return. So what is it that we take maybe pride in? What is it, the thing that we enjoy doing the most? What is the thing that's most profitable for us to perform? And let's focus our messaging there so that it's clear and it's not diluted by all these other services that may be offered. So I'm liking how you're communicating that. So one of the things I'd like to then hone in on is, what advice from a marketing point of view have you found to be effective with regards to accounting services marketing their businesses? Is there anything that stands out as an important element that, for example, should exist on a website?
Yeah, absolutely. So to always think about it from the client's perspective and the outcomes they're trying to get, whether that's, it might be minimizing tax or the forecasting that they need, the outcomes in which they're trying to achieve. If you can get them on the path, for the accountants that I've worked through the years with, usually they're keen to look more so at the forecasting aspect of business rather than just the compliance related works, because the compliance is kind of low ticket, a lower value sale. So to think about, okay, what is forecasting? Well, it's about businesses wanting to grow. What's the outcome they're trying to achieve? They're trying to become a larger company or trying to become more profitable. So it's about speaking in language that is outcome focused and speaking to them. It's about using words about you instead of we are this, we are that. No one really cares about you that much. They care about themselves. So the more you speak to them directly, speak to their hearts and their emotions of what it is they're trying to achieve, then they can see the match and why you might be relevant for them.
This is perfect, because obviously one of the things that I think we naturally are drawn to do is explain what we do, these features of this is what my skill, my expertise allows me to do for my clients. In reality, what they want to hear is exactly like you said. What is it you're doing for me? What's the benefit I'm getting? I'm not so much interested in what you do. I'm wanting to know, when you do it, what do I get? And so all of a sudden, that messaging that you're describing transforms the website from being a list of here's what we do to now taking the time to actually put it into a story to say, here's what we do for our clients and what they get from our services. And now when that person's reading it as a business owner, they're able to see, well, this is what I may experience and what I'm going to get from interacting with this accounting firm. So I'm liking how you're changing that narrative to make sure it's focused on the client. So this wants me to back up a little bit, because I think this is something we overlooked when we were talking about marking geographically and appealing to the local client base. We didn't mention the business listing, and with Google getting listed.
Yeah.
Could you talk about how that's important and how that's relevant in order to actually get some of that low-hanging fruit that may be searching online for accounting services?
Absolutely. So Google is still so important. I mean, there's a lot of talk about AI and large language models and all of that stuff, and it is helpful, but any website will typically get the most traffic through Google, because when someone's ready to buy something or they're looking to hire somebody, they realize that's where you go and you find the person to solve your problems. So Google, anything Google related is ideal, and the Google showing up on the Google Maps. So if you're a business with an address, it's perfect. Some home-based businesses won't want to promote their address, and that's perfectly fine. You don't want people knocking on your door late at night if you're an accountant working from home. That makes sense, but it's a disadvantage because you can't publish your address on your Google business profile. And without an address, you can't show up on the map. How can you? Because there's nowhere to pin you on that map. So ideally, You want to show up, if you can, on the Google business profile. Fill it out. Some people say fill out everything you possibly can. That's not really true. You need to fill out everything that's relevant. Some people make this mistake of hearing, I've just got to fill out my profile to the maximum capacity, and all of a sudden they're filling out things that are irrelevant. So accessibility to the building, for example, which if no one comes to you, it's not relevant to your business. So think of it logically. If it makes good use, practical sense for a human to want to understand about your business, then put it in. But don't tick every box just because somebody said, the more you've got in there, the better. The other thing you can do is to publish to Google Business Profile fairly regularly. So you can do updates and post comments and even link back to your website, your blog, for example. Just anything Google related will help drive your traffic and obviously eventually your sales.
Well, first of all, that's excellent advice, because I can't emphasize more than what you've already shared why having that Google listing is so valuable. And I mean, it's a regular source of clients for the various accounting firms that I interact with, and so it's definitely a very, very useful marketing strategy. But the thing I'd like to add to what you shared is it's basically a free website. They're in essence basically saying, instead of linking off to your website, we're going to give you a website here where we can provide images, lists of services, hours of operation. I mean, they're willing to give you everything that's needed, as well as that map, so that people can learn about you, find you, know what you're doing. That's very valuable. And one of the things that I think people don't do is leverage it to the best of their ability. And to your point, they need to update it and regularly use it. But the thing I'll add also is the power of the reviews that are also available there. Getting Google reviews and getting people to actually give comments as it relates to the experiences they're having with you as a client is very valuable. And what we want to focus on when we're looking at those reviews is the value of the social proof, having these third parties, people that are customers of yours, speak of their experience, so that someone else can actually see, well, maybe this is a comment, a testimonial that relates to my experience, my situation, and now this is something more comfortable for me to now look into, because what that person just said resonates with me. And the thing that I just want to emphasize with the reviews is the quantity and the quality of those is also tempered by the frequency of them. You want to have great reviews. You want to have a lot of them. But if they're reviews that came 3 years ago and you haven't had a new one since, that's a problem. So it's great that people are giving you those high reviews. It's wonderful that they're giving you great comments, but we want to make sure that they're current and regular. There's some consistency to them. Would you add anything more to that?
Yeah, and it's absolutely spot on with the way in which the world is right now, with content flooding, every channel. It's hard to believe what we're reading or seeing. We see videos that look so realistic, and trust is being eroded because of all of this information and content. We can't believe what we read. We can't believe what we can see. But there's a higher level of belief in a third-party endorsement, so a Google review that can't easily be manipulated. So I think it's important to set up just a simple cadence to encourage Google reviews, realizing people want to help you, but they just don't remember to do so by leaving a Google review. So just a gentle prompt. If you've got a great relationship with your client, which you should as an accountant, Just a gentle prompt to leave a Google review can be really powerful. They won't often just go ahead and do it without that gentle reminder that it really helps a business like yours.
You're right. So two things there that you said that I have to point out. One is you want to have a cadence, a place where you've automated in the customer experience when you're going to solicit it, because usually at this point, it's where they're feeling best about what you've done for them. So like with the tax return, you've just filed it, they got their return, the experience was favorable, it was timely. Well, right after that, you'll want to be asking for that feedback. So that's, something that you automate into your workflow. But the better one happens to be when the customer actually thanks you for the services and goes out of their way to say thank you for what you've done. Well, right then you want to say, hey, would you mind if I sent you a link so you could actually leave a review? I'd love to actually share this with my other employees. I'd love to capture what it is you just shared. It's very nice of you. Well, when you take what they've said verbally and you send them a link to now actually document it, that's a perfect time to take advantage of that, gesture that they just did, but now capturing it for the others to see. So wonderful things there. But this brings me to a question about rhythm. Marketing, it's not just a checkbox of I've got my listing, I've done this, I've done my website. There's a rhythm to marketing as well, so that you can proactively, systemically do things to actually bring in clients on a regular basis. What is it that you think marketing is able to do realistically as a rhythm for small business accounting or small accounting firms? Because they're not naturally drawn to doing it all the time, but how often should they be doing something?
Yeah, I think oftentimes accountants will typically do not enough publishing. So to have some sort of system where you publish to all your social platforms frequently is ideal. People think sometimes the fear is, we're just publishing too much and it's going to overwhelm our potential audience. Well, it's not necessarily the case. It's not usually the case, because no one's bumping into your information in every platform every single time you publish. They're only seeing a fraction of what it is that you're putting out there. So I would say just publish frequently and use tools. Make your life simpler. I like Publer because you can publish to all your social platforms, but also your Google business profile. And as you mentioned, that's really powerful to keep that one ticking over. So that's why we use Publer. No affiliate or anything. I think I've got an affiliate link, but I don't ever use it. I don't want to dilute. It's a genuine recommendation. So there's other platforms as well, but you set up a little system where one piece of information or content can be repurposed in a multitude of ways. So it might be through your website, through a blog that you write something meaningful about tax or accounting at that particular time. There might be something that's changed. Here in Australia, it feels like things change all the time. No doubt that's consistent around the world. That things come and go. We're having a lot of talk about different taxes and so on lately that the government want to introduce. So people are really keen to know about that from a taxation perspective. So publish it in your blog, but then repurpose that core message into your social platforms, into your Google business profile. With the right tools, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to repurpose one idea into many, many platforms.
Learn the turnkey process for starting and building a successful accounting business. It's in this course that you'll actually experience 4 specific trainings. Part 1, your business plan, everything you need to know to get started. Part 2, how to price your services, the pros and cons of different methods and the best way to price your services that are both profitable and professional. Marketing and selling your services so that you can actually be top of mind, but more importantly, how to actually be seen as a trusted strategic advisor. And last of all, mapping it all out. 5 principles in running a profitable business so that you can be both competent and confident in the services you're providing. Learn now what it is you can be doing to start and build your own successful accounting, bookkeeping, or tax business. Go to the episode description and there get the information you need to take advantage of this today.
I'm loving this because I think my listeners are wondering, how often should I be doing it and what? And I think you're starting to address a lot of that, because One of the things that I've been taught and I feel is very effective is in any of the publishing, in the marketing, to focus on educating the potential customer as to the various services and the whys about that so that they become a little bit more aware of what it is that they should be considering, and then positioning yourself as the expert, the go-to for it. Because if you can educate them and they feel like that feed of information you're giving them is to their benefit, they'll want to read it, they'll want to pay attention to it, whether it's a newsletter, a blog that you're doing, social things. All of a sudden they start to see you as being a wealth of information. Well, that then helps you with that authority that you're trying to actually use to position you as being the expert, the ideal solution. So that's kind of that strategy there. The other thing I wanted to thank you for is the recommendation of a platform, a tool, a resource, so that they can see, okay, there's something I can do to leverage my time using this interface. And obviously that service that you mentioned, a publisher, is a great way to actually take that one idea, that one thought, and quickly disseminate it across various platforms. Are there any other suggestions that you would have?
Yeah, well, to come up with fresh ideas, sometimes people feel as though they've just got nothing new to share. But realistically, as an accountant, you're always studying the latest, whatever it is. I was talking to an accountant maybe a week ago now, who was just explaining how a lot of the trades in Australia, your contractors are going insolvent. And so he realized the reason was oftentimes cash flow problems. So they'll have building, if they're scaling up to a larger scale, all of a sudden they're needing bigger orders of building material. And so, that cash flow gap of getting paid, if they're doing commercial work, for example, and maybe they've got signed up to get paid 60 days when they've got to pay for the building materials 30 days, that sort of thing. He was explaining to me, this is a massive problem for my clients. Well, there's a massive goldmine of content opportunity because there's true value for his clientele, the tradespeople, to give some tips and advice on how you manage that through his blog, and that can fuel the social media as well. It's super valuable, so it should be out there. And the accountant in this instance, he's studying this stuff anyway, so it's just about taking what he's studying and figuring out how to translate that into a practical way, which is useful for his audience.
Well, you're spot on, Wes, and I couldn't agree with you more. I love that practical example of what we're talking about here, because what's happening is if we listen to our accounting clients, the questions and challenges that they're facing, the things that we're helping them with through the expertise and experience that we have, that is something that another person is experiencing, whether they're a client or not. They're also dealing with that same challenge. And so if we can take that experience and put it into an article, a newsletter, put it into a social post, that is relevant to someone else. And if we can just start communicating that very conversation to the other individuals, they'll actually see worth there because of the fact that they're likewise experiencing that same challenge. So you were spot on with that. So what I'd like to do is now ask the next question that I'm sure everyone's wondering is, AI keeps coming up as a possible solution to some of these challenges as it relates to marketing. And I'm curious, are you finding practical applications of AI as a useful tool to actually help with some of the marketing strategies?
It absolutely is if it's done right. So you want to guide AI and its content production rather than just take whatever it publishes. If you could jump on ChatGPT, let's say, and just ask for content for your website or your social media, and it will just come out generic and bland because all it can do is pull in what everyone else has already said and publish it into something perceived to be new, but it's not really new because it's just a recollation of other people's ideas. But if it's you guiding the thoughts and the ideas into a logical sequence, the way I do it oftentimes, I might have an idea, and I think this is true of all founders. You have ideas as you're going about daily life. You might be in the car driving around and have an idea for a content piece. I might be thinking about a particular client and see their struggles in a certain area, and I think, that will make a great blog post. So I just start talking to my phone, have a conversation with my ChatGPT, and by the time I get to wherever I'm driving to, obviously hands-free, I've got collated my thoughts and ideas into a logical sequence rather than just random bunch of ideas. So it's helped me gather my thoughts into a meaningful content piece, and it's almost ready to publish. Usually need to check over it, and they're pretty close to copy paste, and it's my ideas. So it's AI, but it's my ideas, thoughts and ideas into a logical sequence thanks to the AI helping me with that side of things.
Well, I love that practical application of this because that's a great illustration of how to do it, because you're talking to the AI as if it is an employee, an assistant, someone there. And in that dialogue, you're basically doing a brainstorm of sorts where you're just coming up with ideas and thoughts and suggestions, and you're capturing that all through the ChatGPT interface. And then you're going to be able to have it pull it together and make it something concise. And it's through that interaction that you'll actually come up with some great marketing strategies, some effective business model ideas. All these things are just simply because you chose to use ChatGPT as perhaps one of its best use applications is just a thought processing tool. So I think that's a great application of that. So that being said, I'm kind of curious, do you find accounting professionals are hesitant to kind of lean into the AI, or are you finding that those that you're interacting with are beginning to use it as a tool as it's intended to be?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mix. I mean, there's a couple of accountants who, I suppose they're older gentlemen who might be near the end of selling their businesses. They're at that sort of stage, so they're probably a little bit more reluctant to do anything new because they've got their eye on the end, I guess. But the younger ones are probably a little bit more progressive in that. I think we can all fear AI because there's the potential for some of our work to be or to change at the very least, or to be reduced. But there's huge opportunities as well. And we can't avoid it because it's here to stay. So it's about finding out how it makes sense for your business, and that's why I'm really keen for service-based businesses and accountants and so on to focus on local, because there's that relationship. So the human connection and the relationship is so powerful and important to cut through AI, because if we're just leaning on tools and technology, well, they may as well hire someone on the other side of the planet. They don't need a relationship with that person. But if you're the local person who can serve them, understand their business, you've actually been in their business oftentimes, you pulled your knees under the same table as them and presented to them and understand them on a whole nother level. That's where true value is, I think. So it's about getting the balance right, to use AI effectively, but to maintain human connection and relationship, because that's where your best sales will occur.
Well, you made an excellent segue there, and I'm glad you brought this up, because I was hoping at some point in the conversation we would get to the understanding that marketing is actually relationship selling. One of the things that we need to do is actually realize that at the end of the day, all these strategies, all these things we're trying to do to get out and be noticed, at the end are because we're ultimately expecting to have a one-on-one conversation with a potential client where we're able to get to know them, their business, what's going on. And that whole decision of whether or not they're going to engage with us and pay for our services is going to be contingent, not upon the marketing message they necessarily sought, but rather the conversation we're having with them, because it again is a relationship sell. So I think that's very important that we kind of draw that full circle conclusion of, yeah, there's a lot of things we can be doing strategy wise, but at the end of the day, it's still going to be a relationship sell. So very important. So let me transition. I'm going to change gears here. As a marketer, one of the things that I think is it's very appealing to accounting professionals is the fact that there are metrics that we should be watching, things that we should be looking at to determine whether or not the marketing is actually working, whether or not there's an ROI associated with it. What are some of the metrics that you feel as a marketer are important for us to watch and we should be familiar with?
Yeah, and I think this is part of what the accountants typically do well, because they're obviously numbers-driven people, but to track the process right through from the lead to the end client, the sale, so the inquiry, the triage, however you work it, the discovery call, to track the conversion rate of every step, so to see where people came from in the first instance. It's becoming more difficult to find out exactly where people came from to your website, for example. Back in the day, you could easily just track the click came from Google and that's where the inquiry came from, and you could use technology to track that. But these days, with so many platforms and so many touch points, it can be hard to find the first instance without asking the person. And sometimes they forget, they've bumped into your material on social platforms, they've seen it on your website, maybe they've seen you at a networking event as well. So by the time they make an inquiry, they can't remember how precisely they first found out about you. But it's great if you can find out that first contact, so you can relate the end sale to the first contact and start to realize what the most important aspects of your marketing are. So tracking every piece of the puzzle, every step in the process, every process will be somewhat unique, but there's always that first lead. There's always some form of, a discovery call or, a triage call. Sometimes it's about choosing whether they're an ideal client for you then so whatever it is, the process, tracking them through and figuring out where did your very, very best clients come from. And then you can dial up those mechanisms that attract the very best and dial down those that are potentially bringing leads and inquiries that are not really a great fit for you.
I like that advice. And you're right. Accountants, we are prone to track. We like numbers, so it's not something that we're adverse to. So those metrics are things that we need to track. So yes, we do want to start with initially, where did they first become introduced to us? And it's something that I think is sometimes difficult to acquire because they may not recall, as you're pointing out. But once we can determine where it is that they're initially finding us, that's important to know. The second that I would volunteer is that we need to keep track of then, from that initial contact, that date of when that occurred to the time they actually enroll in our services. What's that time frame?
Yeah.
Does it take me a month, 6 months, a year for an individual to first become acquainted with me and eventually become a client? Because I'd like to shorten that cycle. What can I do to nurture that process so that I can take something that was averaging, let's say 6 months, and now I make it 4 months. Now I make it 2 months. How do I accelerate that experience? And so tracking that timeline is very important. And then in addition to that, it's where else are the touch points along the way? Yes, I know the first one, but what other things did they experience? And this is where I think, you've got your marketing strategies complementing one another.
Get your free copy of the book In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. This is a how-to guide for accounting professionals to work with their clients and actually implement proven processes and systems to ensure that their clients make profit a priority. It is in this book you'll actually learn how to map the business and, in fact, make marketing, accounting, and production a priority within your client's business. You also learn the wisdom pyramid, how to actually take the information you're providing to your clients and effectively use it so that they can make more informed business decisions. This book is designed to help you communicate more effectively with your clients and, in fact, have them see you as their profit and growth expert. Get your free copy now of the ebook today, In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable.
So this brings me to a question that I think is very important, which is related to CRMs, client retention management systems, but more importantly, funnels. The idea of capturing potential contact information, bringing it into our sphere so it's now in our ability to control, reach out to, and manage. But the point is could you explain what a funnel is, what a lead magnet is, and what are some of the key things that you might exchange in behalf of, here, I'd like your contact information, but I'm going to give you this in exchange for it. Can you talk a little bit about that from a marketing point of view?
Yeah, so the concept of the lead, the sales funnel is that you gather in a lot of leads and potential, but you whittle them down to that end sale, because not everyone who starts at the top doesn't necessarily end up in the at the end goal. So that first step in the process is often some form of lead magnet. So it's a giving away of some value, perceived value, in exchange for contact information, typically, so you can follow them up either by phone or a sequence of emails oftentimes as well. It's getting more and more difficult to get people into that process simply because they realize your resource isn't free. They're giving away part of their privacy. So the cost to them giving some part of their information, the value needs to be higher than that perceived cost. So some form of value. It'll depend on the nature of who you're serving, but figuring out, a basic ebook won't really cut it usually anymore, because people can get that information through, ChatGPT or, a quick Google. They can find basic information. But if it's something that's unique and specific to your niche market that they can't find elsewhere, then you're going to have a higher conversion rate. So figuring out what that first step might look like, that's that thing that might be appealing to them, and targeting that really ideal client that we mentioned at the very start. So it might be a tailored solution specific to a particular kind of industry that only you can provide. That's the gold.
Yeah, one of the things that I find fascinating and very important to understand as it relates to funnel marketing is the fact that it is marketing. You're trying to take something of value, something that someone would be willing to give their contact information for, and you're trying to take that to where your ideal clients are. So where is it that you're going to find them? And all of a sudden, once you present it, there has to be that at least equitable exchange in the fact that you're right. They're giving up their privacy. They're going to provide either their email, their phone number, and they understand. We all know this. Once we do that, then we've opened up this whole flood of something's going to come via email, or some phone call is going to happen. A text message is going to perhaps come through. And it's not that that's a problem. I think that's very good. They realize, this is something that interests me. It applies to me. It's relevant to me. So there's not a concern about that relevant exchange of information. It's just, do we respect it? We're not abusing it. And at the same time, are we compelling enough with that lead magnet for enough people to actually see value in providing their contact information? Because in essence, they're raising their hand to say, I'm a potential customer because what you're offering kind of resonates with me, and I think it relates to me. So that's I think a very important thing for my listeners to understand as they consider what are they willing to offer or provide in exchange for potential contact information of a potential customer. So wonderful conversation there. Let's talk about niche marketing a little bit. You brought it up earlier. One of the things that I'd like to do is just get your take on the fact that a lot of people wonder, what does it mean to really niche? And at the same time, am I excluding other good clients in making the decision to niche? Am I intentionally now excluding anyone?
Yeah, that's always the fear, isn't it? So if you get really specific, so let's say you want to target all the electricians, you're in a massive city, and therefore you decide to niche in, let's say trades more holistically. You feel as though, what about the retail outlet? And you might have a suite of clients in that space, and you feel as though you might miss out on more retail, which, any client's a good client. Sometimes it's, at the end of the day, maybe they're mostly the same anyway. So that's always the fear. But what I've found is it doesn't necessarily stop those outside the niche in which you serve. A lot of accountants always get every accountant I've ever met gets a lot of work through referrals anyway. So they're going to come through those channels no matter what industry they are. You're not going to cut that off. It's just the new people who haven't got any connection with your business at all that bump into your website and bump into your material. If they bump into your material, it needs to be really compelling. So the only way to be compelling is to be clear on exactly what you do and who you do it for. So, you're not cutting off those referral-based relationship networks at all. That'll continue because someone's recommended you. That's going to continue, and that's a big part of most businesses. But getting a higher conversion rate will always be a niched marketing message on a website.
Excellent point. Yeah, if you can hone your marketing and target a specific audience, you're going to improve your closing rates only because you're speaking their language. They feel like they're heard, and all of a sudden it resonates with them. So yeah, the niche marketing is effective, but I loved how you pointed out it doesn't mean it's exclusive, because all of a sudden what's happening is referrals. For example, let's say you chose to niche into construction type businesses, and you're working with general contractors and so forth. Well, it's very likely that they also know a daycare owner, and they probably know the restaurant owner, and at the same time, they probably have a dentist that they would happily refer you to. And it doesn't mean you have to say no to the daycare provider and the dentist. You can clearly, even though your marketing and messaging is geared towards that general contractor and the trades, you're going to get the daycare as a client perhaps, and that's totally fine, and I think very appropriate. And the other thing I would just add is when you do niche marketing, it doesn't mean that you can only choose one niche as well. I know people who have chosen to, in their marketing, be very deliberate and intentional to 2 or 3 or 4 different industries. And in doing so, they get clients from each and at the same time service them very, very well. So wonderful discussion about that. Here's where I'd like to go next. I know you've got some strategies that you highly recommend people can do in order to actually up-level their marketing as it relates to, in the next 90 days, what can I focus on to really turn things around? What are some steps, say 3 things that they should be doing in the next 90 days to where they could actually see some marketable changes in the marketing efforts that they have?
Yeah, well, I would start with the website and auditing the website, the message yourself. You probably need some help if you need a technical audit from, the website's not functioning how it should. That's a different thing. But the marketing message, the aspect of what you're communicating, what happens over the course of time is a website will typically start and it will look great and have a really strong message, but your business evolves over the course of time. And so you start adding new things in all the time, and all of a sudden you've got a big beast and it's a big mess and doesn't really do your business justice anymore. So it's about auditing what you're saying and stripping it back to the fundamentals. Google love content, so there's 2 kind of strategies at play. So the place to put lots of content is typically your blog or your news. That's where you can really fuel the beast, fuel Google's and large language models to understand who you are, and lots of different touch points that they might glean message through. So, but your main sales pages, it's usually about stripping that back to the fundamentals and making sure, if you had your website for a long time, and I see this with accounting practices all the time, that they were created many years ago, and so they're not really up to modern day standards. For example, most websites will have more traffic through the mobile phone these days, the cell phone. So it used to always be the opposite. It used to be mostly through your PC, your laptop, that sort of thing, your desktop, and then mobile is a secondary thing. So these days we're often designing for mobile first. So does it look great and function really well on a mobile device? And typically a simplified, less is more approach for mobile is better because you've got a smaller screen to play with. If you put too much in there, there's just endless scrolling before you get to the heart of what it is you're trying to communicate. So stripping it way back, just doing a website audit. Is this message on your phone, ideally, as the first priority? Look through what can be removed and start culling information. You might have spent a bit of blood, sweat and tears to get all that information in there, but it's about cutting it back and being really brutal, really, to cut back to the core fundamentals. So when someone reads it on their phone, you go, yes, I need to talk to this person, and they make the inquiry, they take action on that call to action. Having a really strong call to action is really key.
I love this. Is excellent advice as to what we can practically go do and really improve our marketing. Focus on the website, look at it through the lens of how it appears on a mobile device. Excellent input here. This is phenomenal. Anything more you'd like to add about that? Any strategies?
Yeah, so and the other thing too with the website design, if we want to touch on that, so that to have things in places where people expect them to be. Sometimes designers like me, try and get a little bit tricky because we're doing websites day in, day out. So we want to try new things. But realistic from an end user perspective, it needs to be where things are meant to be. For example, your menu, every website will have a menu. You want the contact page to be the last item in that menu, simply because it always typically is. So if someone's just jumping on your website, they want to get your contact information, they can find that super easy and quick and easy. So put things in the place where we've all learned they should be. So on a PC, the logo would be on the left, the menu would be running along the top, some form of call to action would be on the right there. That's because that's where we know it should be. It might be a phone number in the most simple form of call to action, or it might be a request a proposal, request a booking, like a strategy call, that's things of that nature. Uh-huh. But then you've got the hero section of the homepage. Now, people might not necessarily go to your homepage first, but it's at the highest visited page on your website, simply because people will end up clicking back to there. So that real estate on your homepage, that what you see before you start scrolling, that's where your strongest message needs to be, and that's where a call to action of some description needs to be. So request a call, request a proposal. It depends on the nature of what you're trying to get them to do as that next step. Just think about what's the next step, the next practical step that you want them to take, and that's where it should live.
Yeah, I'm going to add to this a few things. One, I completely agree regarding the website. Don't try to be overly creative, be obvious. Phone number in the top right-hand corner, logo in the top left-hand corner, have a footer with all of your contact information. I mean, these are just some of the obvious things that as a user, when you land on a website, you're expecting things in certain places. The second thing I would also add is, like you were indicating with the homepage, make it deliberately clear. Don't make them think, and have an obvious call to action. I'm here. What do I do next? Where do I go next? And just be blatantly obvious. Click here, go here, do this next, schedule an appointment for a strategy session. Those types of things are sometimes missed. And really the person lands on the website, looks, it doesn't say what to do next, so they leave. And so what we need to do is just use this philosophy of don't make them think, just let them do what you're supposed to do by telling them. So excellent advice. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start wrapping a few things up here. And as I do so, Wes, I'm going to come back to you for a closing thought. But this has been a phenomenal conversation, one with a lot of insights as it relates to marketing. I'm very grateful for it. So let me just kind of highlight a few things. One, I do want to point out that Wes has offered, if you'd like to speak with him. He is more than willing to give you some additional thoughts and suggestions as it relates to marketing. So take advantage of reaching out to Wes and actually learning more about what it is you can do to effectively market your accounting services. You can visit uplift360.com.au. You can book a strategy call there. You can go. This information is in the episode description, so you can go there as well for that information. But I encourage you to maybe speak with Wes and find out what insights he might have specifically for you in your current situation. As it relates to Universal, they are sponsors of the podcast. They actually have two things for everyone listening today. One happens to be the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. This is a challenge for individuals to work on both your personal and professional aspects as it relates to building the premier accounting firm in your area. It's here that for the next 90 days, you're going to receive weekly emails with little challenges, things that you can work on. These may be things that take 5-10 minutes in 1 week. Another week might be an hour-long exercise. But the point is these are easily done activities to help you work on yourself and your business so that you can, in fact, offer quality accounting services and, in fact, become the premier accounting firm in your area. So I encourage you now, if you haven't already, subscribe to the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. You can go to universalaccounting.com, and in the website navigation, go to free resources. In the free resource section, go and find the Accountrepreneurs Challenge. That's what you're going to sign up for and participate in that 90-day experience working on both yourself and the business. The other happens to be GrowCon. GrowCon is an annual conference. It is an event you do not want to miss. It is a conference for owners of bookkeeping, accounting, and tax businesses. It's here on the stage. We hear from the experts as to various things we can be doing to work on our business. It could be things related to marketing and sales so that we can effectively grow our client base and get the clients we deserve. It could be related to these services we're offering, things that we can do to bring value to those relationships so that we can not only keep the clients we have, but help them actually use the information that we're providing them and literally take the accounting information and work that we're doing to benefit them in their businesses. The other happens to be that of working efficiently and productively. What are those different tools, techniques, strategies we can use internally to become more effective in the work that we're actually performing? So definitely come to the conference, learn what it is you can be doing to work on your business. You also there get to meet your peers, those individuals like you who are owners of businesses, accounting, bookkeeping, tax businesses, finding out what it is they're doing to thrive in their circles, and also at the same time, perhaps collaborate with them to service your clients better. So many opportunities. Definitely come. I encourage you to register now and join us for GrowCon. You can go to universalaccounting.com and in the navigation, find more details about the event and register. Lastly, what I'd like to also point out is kind of a summary of our conversation here. I love this discussion because Wes was very insightful at the very beginning when we were talking about marketing, beginning with leveraging who you are as it relates to your local market. And if you're local, just making it so that you're obviously found, something that's very easy, such as your Google listing. But then he brought up, if you're in a larger market, the value of niching and going into that ability of explaining why your services are special, unique, and how you resonate with certain industries and types. That niching is very relevant to help actually distinguish why someone should consider your services over another. Thought that was an excellent part of the conversation. Another part of the conversation that I thought was also very insightful is when we were diving into various strategies as it relates to marketing. There are just a number of things that we can do, but it needs to have a rhythm. We need to actually have a routine. We need to be doing something consistently. I think that's very insightful for us to remember, because it may not be where we're drawn naturally, but it is something we have to intentionally do. And I thought that was a very important part of what Wes was sharing with us. We also spoke of AI and using that as a tool to actually help us with that. And he gave a great illustration of just talking to it as an assistant and brainstorming, just feeding it information so that you can now actually take those thoughts and more or less pull them together and maybe come up with something strategic. And I thought that was an excellent illustration of how to utilize AI so that it is a tool of use for us. The other thing that I thought was helpful is we talked about what numbers to track. We're drawn to numbers. What are we tracking as it relates to marketing? We really emphasized the importance of knowing where that initial contact is happening, where you're spending your time and money. Is it working? Are you finding those potential customers? And then tracking some numbers as it relates to how long it takes for them to become clients and such. These are all worthwhile things to know when you're spending your time and money in marketing as to whether or not it is effective. The other thing that I thought was also very helpful is the fact that we were able to talk about things related to funnels and leads. When you're actually going out there and offering something as a lead magnet, you're asking for them to give up their contact information in exchange, their privacy. And we have to understand that this is a valuable way of bringing that individual into our CRM, our sphere of influence, because now we have their contact information that we can nurture them through. And I shared at that point the importance of being able to educate them and at the same time position yourself as the authority. All these things here are all valuable marketing tips to actually lead someone towards becoming a potential customer, moving them into that sales experience that we've all got to focus on if we're wanting to grow our business. So Wes, wonderful conversation, lots of great insights, wonderful applications, advice for websites and so forth. What would you like to end with as a closing thought?
It's been a fantastic conversation. Thanks so much, Roger. I think if people concentrate, we spoke about the call to action, but that's such an important aspect of what people have in their marketing message. What is it you want them to do? It's a basic question, but it's an easy win. Once you figure out what you want them to do next, what's the logical next step you want them to take, then gear your marketing around that. You'll get some great wins that way.
Wes, that is awesome. What a great way to end the conversation. Always remember making it clear. Don't let them think. Tell them what to do. Have a clear call to action. Excellent advice. Perfect. Well, everyone, I appreciate your listening. Obviously, if you haven't already, I'd like to encourage you to subscribe to the podcast. Love to have you as a subscriber, where each and every week we release episodes to help you work on your business, addressing various topics and themes that you can focus on to actually make growing your business, serving your clientele a priority. Now, as it relates to Universal, I do want to point out that if you are subscribed, we do also have playlists. And actually, if you're not subscribed, you can take advantage of these as well. These are basically a compilation of past episodes based on topics. So if you're actually in a situation where you want to learn more about pricing, training your staff, tech stacks, maybe it's marketing, selling, you can go to universalaccounting.com, and there you'll find a podcast section where we've compiled the highlights. Those highlights are actually grouped in playlists, so you can binge listen past episodes, hearing from the experts as it relates to these very specific topics that are relevant to you today. And I encourage you to go do so. In doing that, you'll actually get a wealth of information as to practical things you can actually use and apply in your business today. So take advantage of those playlists and go binge listen and listen to those experts today. Now, also with regards to our conversation, if you'd like more information regarding marketing your services, growing your business, if you'd like to learn what you can do to actually have the premier accounting firm in your area, go to universalaccountingschool.com, and there you can see what programs exist to actually help you as the owner, help to train your staff, and also to address these various topics, all of which are meant to actually help you become the premier accounting firm in your area. So go to universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call. You can reach us at 801-265-3777. And always remember this, accounting success is universal. Do take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.